Hey guys, I'm here with Tim from New Haven Funerals here. It's a big day today, drought relief for the farmers, mate. Now, tell us about your part involved with this.
Yeah, we were invited to be a part of this. Rotary has asked us to be involved. We've sponsored some of the costs for today's event. One of those is to help get Mr. Anderson here and talk about hope in general, and if we can do our part to potentially save one life or guide people in the right direction. It's a privilege to be involved in an event like this, and we're really proud to be a part of that today. So, yeah.
Sounds good. Now, your part in the funeral side, like there is some downers there too. How does it actually take stress into your family with all these situations happening?
Sure. It's taken me probably 20 years to not take that stress home. I have a gate where I come into home and I turn the switch in my head. I don't take that work home. It's taken a long time for me to develop that. But yeah, it's a daily task for us to deal and handle with other people's grief and some of the tragedies that go on in society. And yeah, we really want to help being part of the community, and this is one of those things that we do.
Well, guys, behind the scenes, the people that actually help organise this and have been doing for quite a long time, Jeff the Rotarian, mate. How are you?
Well, thank you, and welcome to today, and thank you for coming along.
No worries, mate. Now, just briefly, your background used to be in the force, mate.
Yeah, I spent 41 years in the police force in Queensland, a lot of that time in country areas where I saw the effects that drought and family issues have on people and the devastation that both can cause, especially with suicide rates as they are. And this year we had a fundraiser last year that focused on the farms in southwest Queensland for financial assistance. This year we looked at the issues and we thought we'd go work with Greg and look at the mental health issues and help the families in that regard.
Well, the stress out there in the farms with this drought must take like a big toll on the whole family, especially the young kids.
It does. With the drought, it affects the income of the families, and that has a flow-on effect to the people lower in the family and the community as such, and it does drive them to despair and can cause some catastrophic outcomes.
Now, how close is this actually bringing us, the drought? How close to our major cities?
It's getting closer in all the time. People don't realise, they think it's out bush, but it affects the whole community, both the cities and the country towns, and that's why we're looking at trying to help the farmers, because that has a flow-on effect to the whole community and the nation as a whole.
Now, I was just out at Nimbin a couple of weeks ago, and as you can see now, I've got some footage of the rivers out there, totally dried out. All the wildlife, looking for water, and of course, like the product farmers stuff is going right down.
And the fires haven't helped either.
No.
But having worked in the country, I've seen when the river runs dry or gets low, the whole town suffers, therefore the whole community suffers. So what we're trying to do today is offer some assistance to the farmers out there to help them get through the hard times so that when the good times do come back, they're in a fit state to go forward.
Sounds great, Jeff. I know you're really busy. We've got heaps to meet. Okay, we're here with Mark and Heidi, guys. How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks.
Now, you guys have come all the way from Roma. I've been out there a few times. Nice place, but with the fires and the drought, it's pretty bad at the moment. Now, you're not into farming. You have been in the past, but now you're out there helping these guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Yeah, so no, we aren't farmers, that's right. But we are very much for the farmers, and we are very involved with our community in Roma and helping see them, grow and yeah, so yes, the drought is really terrible at the moment.
And you've seen some really bad situations coming from there, so you've seen it firsthand what actually happens.
That's right. It's a lot of fatigue that comes on people day after day trying to feed stock, and with no weather changes, so it just wears them down, and they just need some hope, a lot of hope.
Now, what sort of support are you guys offering out there? Fundraising?
Absolutely, and we do often help out with hampers and things like that for families. They don't often come forward for that. It is quite a strategic thing in building relationship with them first. They don't like to put their hands up for any help too quickly. But yeah, so we do provide fundraising and hampers and whatever else we can support them with.
Sounds great. Well, we're here with two psychologists here from the Gold Coast, Vicky and Greg. Guys, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Now, it's a great pleasure speaking to you because you've gone all out to help these people out on the farms, drought-stricken, stress, to deal with all that, no internet. Now, we've got this little device here. Mate, tell us about what your part is in this.
Okay, a few years ago we learned about the dire needs in rural Australia and the poor psychological health, and because people have been under load for so long. And we, when we learned about that, we wondered what we could do here as a small clinic on the Gold Coast. So what we decided to do was to record 6 crisis sessions with myself and put it on a USB and be able to start to insert that into rural areas. And it's turned out to be a very powerful resource in an area where they have few resources. If someone turned up in a crisis clinic or was diagnosed with a severe condition or even suicidal, a suicidal man who's run out of reasons to live, that man will still be on a 5 to 6 week waiting list to see somebody. And that's current statistics. That's what's really happening on the ground in rural Queensland and Australia. Well, both Vicky and I are only one generation away from rural life. So we have come from a farming background, and we know, I guess, and understand and actually feel rural isolation. And most farmers I meet, they're actually quietly worried about their neighbour, but they never really recognise that they're actually in strife themselves. And so, but we understand that. We understand that they'll feed their dog before they looked after themselves. And so we've just found a very simple way to put some part of a solution in a man's pocket or in his hand that he can walk away, turn up at home, sneak away into his own little laptop and plug and play. What we found, now years ago I wondered whether this was just half someone's solution. And I wonder whether, just a percentage or something. But I've only just recently realised that what if it's twice as good as I actually think it is? And the reports that we're getting back from rural and regional areas would indicate that that's probably closer to the truth. We've actually stumbled across something. And Australians, we're genius at innovation. You start wandering around the rural areas, we're genius at innovation. I heard Elle Macpherson, I think it was at the Magic Millions when she was in Australia early in the year, she said, the whole world looks to Australia for innovation. And you know what, I thought, you're onto it, girl. That's exactly right. We are clever people. And this might just be one of them.
Mate, it's a great pleasure speaking to you. Again, guys out there watching, the farmers are doing it tough, but they hold back and don't really tell us what's going out there. You've heard it from the experts here. Guys, thanks again for all your participation in this. From the Gold Coast, Pete the Surfaroo, yeah. Okay, now, why you're here is because of 2 things, the drought relief and, of course, issues with the young generation mentally wise.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back.
Yes, the young.
Yep.
But what's a more it's more disturbing to me. I have a theory about the young people of these. They get fed so much negativity. And now, having done therapy,
yes,
in 2 periods of my life to deal with my childhood damage, and also to do with adult issues.
Okay.
I know that if you want productivity, you're positive. And if you are negative about something, if in other words the energy you put out is negative, in a relationship like a marriage, or whether you're a teacher teaching children or you're bringing up your own children, if it's a negative environment, it'll breed negativity.
Yeah, it transfers out, that's right.
Absolutely. What you send out comes back. Nothing truer. So I think that there's a lot, and we won't get bogged down with it, but I think there's some people that have a lot to answer for with the so-called mental state, or the mental problems that young people in school are having. But when you see the tragedy, and that's a tragedy in itself, because I mean, my kids went to school. They're all grown up now.
Yeah.
But when they were in secondary school, several of their friends committed suicide. And for a 15 or a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old to be so without hope, despairing so badly about whatever, to take their own life. But then again, I do believe that they don't understand the total consequences of their actions. But what's even sadder, if anything can be sadder than a young person taking their life, is when a man who's in his 50s or 60s and sees his whole life destroyed right before his eyes, not through lack of hard work, because the people we're talking about, particularly rural people, farmers, etc., they're the epitome. If there's a manifestation of hard work, if you look it up in the dictionary, there's a photo of a farmer there, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of other men that men and women that work very, very hard as well. But when the man on the land becomes so, caught up in despair, no hope at all, that they think, well, okay, what's the point?
Tough, really tough.
That is, that's something we all have to, all of us, take a stand against. I made a conscious decision several times in my life, and fortunately, most of the time, it was the right decision.
Positive.
Absolutely.
Good.
But I was guided, see. I came to realise very early in my life that there are forces at work that aren't physical. And that's all I'll say about it right now, but it's the inner voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Taking you right back, you've been that drive has been there for a long time. Now we'll go right back in TV. There was this film with a talk show called The Challenge.
Yeah.
And that was related to the drought. The train. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, actually, one of the first stories that we did, I joined television, and that's part of my journey, in '85, and Ray Martin took over the midday show. And I was introduced to any room that had a television, So all of a sudden I went from being, the bad boy of rock and roll to being Ray Martin's sidekick, which was a big step away from where I was or who I was. But anyway, that's part of the story.
Yep.
And after 5 years, we did midday from 85 to 90. And in 91, he went to Current Affair, and he took me with him. And we were presented with an idea to do a series called The Challenge. And the challenge, you'll have to Google this. The challenge was set up to, people would come to us and say, I want to achieve this, or I would like to do this, Like, just for instance, one time one of the early ones, Farmhand, which is a branch of a government department set up to address all things rural. And yes, folks, there was a drought back then, and that was in the early 90s.
Okay.
And one of the first one of the things that we did was we assembled the first rail train, the longest train still to this day, the longest train ever assembled in Australia, driven by 4 locos, 2 pulling, 2 pushing. Loaded it with water and dry goods and, all things imaginable. We went from hay, the first hay run, trailer after, truck after truck after truck.
Yep.
Left from Melbourne, hay donated by a surplus of Victorian farmers, came up through New South Wales, picked up more, and brought it all the way up to Queensland. And we stopped because the railhead stopped at a town called Texas.
Okay.
And we stopped there, and it was a symbolic thing, but it was to set this thing up, right? And at the same time, got all these truckies when they got onto the idea. So all of a sudden, 100 trucks,
Convoy,
200 trucks, 300 trucks.
Wow.
And the biggest road train of trucks that came off as a spin, and they went all the way up from Victoria. South Australia got involved, and all the way up to Queensland, because Queensland in those days was in dire straits as far as, so was New South Wales, but Queensland were really suffering. And I think that was in about like 91.
Right.
And there was a really, really bad, you'll have to Google it.
Yeah.
They have to.
There you go. Okay, guys, well, we've got the meeting coming up now. Angry, mate, it was a pleasure speaking, catching up with you. Pete the Surfaroo, Angry, Drought Relief here. It's all going off. See you soon, guys. Yeah.